Welcome back, everyone. Before we dive in, be sure to drop your thoughts, feelings, and lessons in the comments below. Like the video and subscribe so you never miss stories like this. Let's get into it. My girlfriend, Janelle Price, cheated on me, then laughed with her friends and said, "No matter what I do, Malik always comes crawling back to make things up." I heard it with my own ears, standing close enough to smell her perfume, close enough to feel my chest turn cold. Here's how it happened. I thought love was supposed to feel safe, not like something you have to keep proving you deserve. I'm Malik Johnson, born and raised in Baltimore, Maryland, the kind of man who runs life like a checklist. Bills early, work on time, groceries stocked, phone calls returned. I used to think that type of steadiness was a blessing to the people around me. Janelle used to call it reliable, the way she'd lean into me at night like I was the wall holding her up. I didn't realize she was measuring me like a cushion, something to land on after she jumped. We met at a friend's cookout in Druid Hill Park. She had a laugh that made people turn their heads without knowing why. She told me she worked in marketing for a medical supply company downtown, and that she was tired of boys who talk big but disappear. I believed her. I like how she asked questions and remembered details. I liked that she showed up to date on time and didn't play games in the beginning. When she moved into my apartment in Pigtown, she said she'd never had a man make her feel this taken care of. I took that as love. The first year looked like progress. I helped her pay off a credit card. She helped me furnish the living room with a couch we could both stretch out on. We got into routines, Sunday grocery runs, Friday takeout, weeknight calls when I worked late at the warehouse. I started thinking about proposing, not because I wanted a moment, but because I wanted a life with someone I trusted. Janelle said she wanted that too. She'd post pictures of us smiling, captions about peace, and she'd hold my hand in public like she was proud. That's what made it sting later. The change didn't explode, it leaked. She started protecting her phone like it was a second heart. She started taking work calls on the balcony. She stopped asking how my day was and started telling me everything I did wrong before I even sat down. If I forgot to bring home juice, I was inconsiderate. If I asked why she got home at 2 a.m., I was controlling. The way she talked to me shifted, like I'd been demoted from partner to obstacle. I kept trying to fix it because I thought relationships had seasons. I didn't know I was being trained. One Saturday, we went to a rooftop spot in Harbor East because her coworker was having a birthday. I didn't love crowds, but I wanted to be supportive. I stood a little behind her while she greeted people. I watched her laugh too hard at jokes that weren't funny. I watched her touch a man's arm a little too long. When she said she needed to use the restroom, I stayed near the bar and waited. That's when I heard her voice, Janelle's voice, sharp with confidence, surrounded by her friends' laughter like a choir. "I'm telling you," she said, "I can do whatever and Malik will still come crawling back. He'll be mad for a day, and then he'll buy me flowers like he's apologizing." A friend laughed and said, "Because he's soft." Janelle replied, "Not soft, just trained." My stomach dropped like an elevator cable snapped. I didn't walk up and cause a scene. I didn't confront her in front of her friends. I just stood there and let the truth rearrange everything inside me, piece by piece, while the music kept playing like nothing important had happened. When she came back, she kissed my cheek like I was still safe to lie to. "You okay?" she asked, smiling. I nodded because my mouth didn't trust itself. We left a little later. In the car, she played with the radio and hummed, perfectly relaxed, while I drove like my hands belonged to someone else. At a red light, she glanced at me and said, "You're quiet. Don't start acting weird," like I was the problem for being wounded. That night, she fell asleep fast. I stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, trying to understand how a person can live in your home and still think you're less than human. The next morning, I went to work on autopilot. Boxes, pallets, scanners, the beep of inventory guns. Everything felt far away. I kept hearing her voice, trained. It made me feel small in a way I hadn't felt since childhood. Around lunchtime, I checked my phone and saw a message from Janelle. "I'm going out after work. Don't wait up." No explanation. No courtesy. I realized she wasn't even trying to hide anymore. She thought she'd already won because she thought I'd always choose peace over dignity. That evening, I didn't go home right away. I sat in my car in the parking lot and made myself breathe through the tightness in my chest. I thought about everything I'd paid for, everything I'd excused, every time I'd apologized first just to end an argument. I thought about how often I'd looked at her face and tried to read love in it, when she was reading conveniences in mine. I didn't cry. Not yet. I was past tears. I was in that quiet place where you stop negotiating with reality and start planning your way out. Over the next week, I watched her carefully, not like a jealous man, but like a man gathering facts. She started coming home with new energy, humming, showering immediately, changing into sleepwear that didn't belong to the mood she'd been giving me. She'd criticize my cologne, then wear lipstick to run errands. She'd accuse me of not being romantic, but refuse to be touched. I asked once calmly if she was seeing someone else. She laughed in my face. "You are not about to start acting insecure," she said. "That's not attractive." 2 days later, I saw the name Darius Lane pop up on her phone while it was charging on the counter. It was just a notification, on my way. No context, but her entire body shifted when she saw it. She grabbed the phone like it was a weapon and walked away. That night, she told me she had a late meeting. I said, "Okay." She narrowed her eyes like she expected a fight. "That's it?" she asked. I kept my voice even. "That's it." The confusion on her face was small but satisfying. She wanted me to beg. She wanted me to perform pain. I decided she didn't deserve the show. The next morning, I started doing quiet cleanup, financial, legal, practical. I wasn't married to her, but we were tangled in the way people get tangled when they live together. Her name was on some things. My name was on most things. I opened a new checking account at a different bank in Towson and changed my direct deposit. I removed her as an authorized user for my credit card. I updated passwords and turned on two-factor authentication. I checked my credit report and froze it, just in case. I started putting important documents, lease copies, insurance paperwork, pay stubs, into a folder at my cousin Andre's place in Columbia, Maryland. The hardest part wasn't the logistics. The hardest part was living beside her while my love cooled into clarity. She'd ask for money like it was her allowance. "Can you send me $200? I'm short," she'd say, not even looking up from her phone. When I asked what it was for, she'd roll her eyes. "Why do you always need details?" If I sent it, she'd say nothing. If I didn't, she'd punish me with silence. Once, she told me, "You're not my father. Don't monitor me." I didn't monitor her. I just stopped funding her disrespect. One Friday, she came home angry. Not sad, not guilty. Angry, like I failed a test she never told me about. "We need to talk," she said, dropping her purse like it was too heavy to carry. I paused the TV. She stood over me like a boss. "I can't do this anymore," she said. "You're draining. You're always watching me, always quiet, always making me feel like I'm doing something wrong." I stared at her, stunned by how comfortable she was lying. She wasn't leaving because I was bad. She was leaving because I wasn't obedient enough anymore. "I need space," she continued. "I'm going to stay with my friend Kiera for a while." Then she added, "Actually, no. You should go. I can't relax with you here." She said it like I was the guest in my own apartment, like the lease didn't have my name, like the furniture wasn't mine. "You want me to leave?" I asked. She shrugged. "You always bounce back. Go to your mom's or something." That's when I realized she wasn't even pretending to care anymore. She was trying to control the exit like she controlled the relationship. Make me scramble, make me beg, make me crawl. For a moment, I wanted to argue. I wanted to say, "Are you serious?" I wanted to list everything I'd done, but something steadier took over. "Okay," I said. Her eyes widened. "Okay," she repeated, almost offended. I stood up and walked to the bedroom. I packed a bag, work clothes, toiletries, my laptop, my documents. She followed me, waiting for tears. "Don't be dramatic," she said. "This is temporary." I didn't answer. I left without slamming a door. I drove to Andre's house in Columbia, parked in his driveway, and finally let myself breathe like I'd been underwater for months. Andre opened the door in a hoodie, took one look at my face, and stepped aside without questions. In his guest room, I sat on the edge of the bed, hands folded like I was in church. "She put you out?" Andre asked quietly. I nodded. He exhaled slowly, like he was trying not to curse too loud. "Say less," he said. "Stay as long as you need." That night, I stared at the ceiling again, but it wasn't the same ceiling. It wasn't the same prison. My chest still hurt, but at least I was hurting somewhere safe. Janelle didn't call to check on me. She didn't ask if I made it. She didn't apologize for forcing me out. She texted the next day, "Make sure you still send the half for rent." Like she was collecting a fee for my own humiliation. I stared at the message until my vision blurred. Andre watched me from the kitchen doorway. "Don't do it," he said. "Don't pay for the privilege of being disrespected." The truth was, I didn't have to. The lease was in my name. The utilities were in my name. She was just used to me obeying. I didn't respond. My silence wasn't a weakness anymore. It was a boundary. The following week, I went back to the apartment while she was at work. I used my key, walked through the living room, and felt the air change, like the space itself remembered what it had cost me. I photographed everything, my furniture, my electronics, my documents. I packed what mattered most. I didn't touch her things. I wasn't trying to destroy her life. I was trying to reclaim mine. In the bedroom, I found a men's watch on the dresser. Expensive, not mine. My throat tightened. There it was. Proof without a confession. I left it where it was and kept packing. Before I left, I checked the mail. There were 2 envelopes addressed to Janelle with a return address I didn't recognize. A medical bill, a past due notice. I felt a wave of anger. Not because she had bills, but because she'd been living on my stability while letting her life crumble in secret. I put the mail back. Not my mess. Outside, I ran into our neighbor, Mrs. Winston, who looked at me with pity. "Everything okay, baby?" she asked. I forced a small smile. "Working through it," I said. She nodded like she already knew more than I did. People always know. They just don't always tell you. That night, Janelle posted a selfie with the caption, "Protecting my peace." I stared at it for a long time. Peace. That word felt like a weapon in her hands. Something she used to paint herself as the victim. The next day, one of her friends I barely knew, Shayla, watched my Instagram story and then unfollowed me. Another one blocked me. It was like a silent group decision had been made. Malik is the joke. Malik is the one we can throw away. I didn't defend myself. I didn't post hints. I didn't type paragraphs. I started keeping receipts instead. I had to work, so I kept working. But every night at Andre's, the ache would come back, steady and heavy. I'd sit on the back steps and listen to the quiet Columbia Street. No sirens, no shouting, just distant cars and wind and trees. That quiet made room for memories, and memories made room for pain. I kept replaying the rooftop moment, the laughter, the word trained. Some nights I hated myself for staying as long as I did. Other nights I missed her so much it felt like I'd swallow glass. Healing is ugly when you're doing it honestly. 2 weeks later, Janelle finally called. Her voice was sweet, rehearsed. "Hey," she said like nothing happened. "I miss you." I didn't answer right away. I could hear her breathing, waiting for me to rush in. "I'm just going through a lot," she continued. "I've been stressed." I said, "Okay." Silence. Then her tone sharpened. "Why are you acting like that?" she snapped. "Like what?" I asked. "Like you don't care," she said. I almost laughed. She didn't miss me. She missed the control. She missed the cushion. "I'm coming by tonight," she announced. "We should talk." She didn't ask. She told. That old version of me would have cleaned up, cooked dinner, tried to earn my way back in her mood. This time I said no, another silence, bigger, offended. "Excuse me?" she asked. "No," I repeated, calm. She let out a sharp laugh. "Whatever. You'll come around," she said, like she was speaking to a dog that wandered off. Then she hung up. Andre looked at me from the kitchen table. "She thinks you're a habit," he said. "Break it." The next day, I got an email notification. My credit monitoring service flagged an inquiry. My stomach dropped. Someone had tried to open a line of credit in my name. I logged in, hands shaking, and saw the details. A retail card application submitted online using my information. The address listed was my apartment. I hadn't applied for anything. My mind went quiet in the most dangerous way. I called the bank, reported fraud, and confirmed my credit freeze was active. Then I sat there, staring at the wall, realizing Janelle wasn't just cruel. She was reckless, and she felt entitled to my identity the same way she felt entitled to my patience. I drove to the apartment again, But this time I didn't go inside. I parked across the street and waited. Around 8 p.m., a car pulled up, dark sedan, tinted windows. A man stepped out. Darius Lane, the same name I'd seen on her phone. He walked like he belonged there. He didn't look around like he was hiding. He walked straight to my building and went inside with a key Janelle must have given him. My chest tightened, but I didn't move. I didn't fight. I didn't storm in. I let the truth become undeniable. Sometimes closure is ugly. Sometimes it's a man walking into your home like you never existed. That night, I didn't sleep. I filed a police report for attempted identity theft, not naming anyone yet, just documenting the incident. I changed every password again. I called the leasing office the next morning and asked about my rights with an unauthorized occupant. They told me what I already knew. It was my lease, my responsibility, my decision. So I made a decision. Quietly, I gave notice to end the lease at the earliest legal date. I scheduled movers for my things. I didn't tell Janelle. She didn't deserve strategy. She deserved consequences. When she texted me, "Did you apply for a card?" Because something came, I felt the heat rise in my throat. Not guilt, rage. She was sloppy enough to get caught and bold enough to ask me like I was her customer service. I replied, "Don't use my information for anything." She responded instantly, "What are you talking about? Stop accusing me." Then she added, "You're being paranoid. This is why I needed space." No remorse, no accountability, just blame. I read it twice and understood something clear. She would burn my life down and call it self-care. The day I went to the apartment with movers, Janelle was there. She stood in the doorway with her arms crossed like I was invading. Darius sat on the couch behind her, feet up, watching like it was entertainment. My stomach turned, but my voice stayed steady. "I'm getting my property," I said. Janelle smirked. "You're really doing all this?" she asked. Darius chuckled. "He's hurt," he said like I wasn't in the room. Janelle looked at me and said, "I told you. You always come back. Just not like this." Her confidence made me realize she'd never thought of me as a person. I was a resource. The movers worked fast. I didn't argue. I didn't plead. I didn't even look at Darius again. Janelle kept making comments, trying to provoke me. "So who are you staying with now?" she asked loudly. "Andre," I said. "Cute," she replied. "You're really running." I paused and looked at her. "You forced me out," I said quietly. She laughed. "Stop rewriting history," she snapped. "You're dramatic." Darius added, "He'll be back." I nodded once, like I'd heard them, and kept moving. Let them believe that. Sometimes people need their illusions to walk straight into their downfall. After the move, I returned my keys to the leasing office and notified them that Janelle was no longer authorized to occupy the unit after the termination date. The manager, a tired woman named Ms. Hart, looked at me like she'd seen this story before. "We'll handle it," she said. I left and sat in my car for a long time. My hands trembled on the steering wheel. I wasn't proud. I wasn't celebrating. I felt like I just amputated a limb to save my life. People talk about leaving like it's an act of strength. Sometimes leaving feels like grief with a spine. The months after that were heavy. Janelle didn't collapse immediately. She didn't suddenly understand. She doubled down. She posted vague quotes about toxic men and freedom. She told mutual friends I was unstable, that I spied on her, that I tried to control her. Some people believed her. Some didn't want to choose sides, which felt like choosing her. I lost friends without a fight, which hurt more than I expected. It taught me something. A lot of people love the version of you that's easy to use. The moment you enforce a boundary, they call it an attitude. Andre kept me grounded. He didn't let me romanticize the past. "You missed the beginning," he said one night, handing me a plate of food. Not her. I wanted to argue, but I couldn't. Because the truth was, I missed the person I thought she was. I missed the safety I imagined. I didn't miss being disrespected. I didn't miss walking on eggshells. I didn't miss apologizing for things I didn't do. So I started rebuilding in small ways. I joined a boxing gym in Colombia and let the heavy bag absorb the anger I couldn't say out loud. At work, I asked for extra responsibility, not extra hours responsibility. I told my supervisor I wanted to move up. He looked surprised, then nodded. "You're steady," he said. "I can work with that." I started taking a certification course at night, logistics systems, data tracking, inventory management. It wasn't glamorous. It was quiet progress. It was me investing in a future that didn't depend on Janelle's mood. I stopped checking her social media. I stopped asking mutual friends what she was doing. Every time I felt the urge, I reminded myself, she wanted my attention like oxygen. Starving that habit was part of my healing. Then the first real piece of karma landed. Not dramatic, just sharp. I got a call from a detective. "Mr. Johnson?" he asked. "This is Detective Riley with Baltimore County. We're following up on a report connected to identity theft attempts and a series of fraudulent applications." My stomach clenched. "Okay," I said. He asked if I knew anyone who had access to my personal information. I swallowed and pictured Janelle's smirk, Darius on my couch. "Yes," I said carefully. "I do." The detective told me they couldn't share details yet, but they'd be in touch. When I hung up, Andre watched my face. "It's coming back on her," he said. "Let it." Weeks later, I learned what I needed without gossip. A letter arrived at Andre's house, forwarded mail from my old address. It was from a collections agency about a retail card balance I didn't recognize. But my credit freeze had blocked the account from opening fully. That meant someone tried and failed, then tried again elsewhere. I gathered the letters, printed my credit reports, and delivered everything to the detective. I didn't feel satisfied. I felt vindication wrapped in sadness. I never wanted Janelle arrested. I wanted her to stop hurting me. But she couldn't stop because she didn't see harm as real unless it happened to her. One evening, Janelle called me from an unknown number. I answered without thinking. "Malik," she said, voice tight. "I need you." I stayed silent. "Something's going on," she continued. "People are saying my name is getting dragged into stuff." I said, "Don't call me from strange numbers." Her voice turned sharp immediately. "So you're just going to abandon me?" she snapped. Abandon? Like she didn't push me out. Like she didn't replace me in my own home. I said, "You abandoned this first." She scoffed. "You always act like a victim," she said. Still no remorse. Still poisonous. Then she whispered, "Darius said you're doing this." I hung up. That night, I sat in the dark and let myself feel the full weight of it. Not pity for her, grief for what I'd lived through. I remembered the rooftop laughter. I remembered being told to leave my own apartment. I remembered the attempted fraud. I remembered how small I'd felt, how lonely. And I realized something that made me sit up straight. The comeback wasn't a punchline. It wasn't revenge. It was that I survived her without becoming her. I didn't cheat back. I didn't humiliate her online. I didn't ruin her with gossip. I protected myself, built myself, and let the law handle what the law is meant to handle. By winter, I had enough saved to move into my own place in Ellicott City. Small, clean, quiet. I bought furniture slowly, choosing everything like I was choosing my own peace. I kept my home simple. A couch, a table, a bookshelf, a framed photo of my mom and me from years ago. I cooked more. I slept better. Some nights the loneliness still hit, but it was different. It wasn't the loneliness of being with someone who didn't respect me. It was the loneliness of adjusting to a life where nobody was shouting over my boundaries. It was healing loneliness, the kind that eventually turns into solitude. A few months after that, Andre called me while I was at the grocery store. "Are you sitting down?" he asked. "What?" I said, heart quickening. "Janelle got evicted," he said. I stood in the aisle, holding a box of cereal, trying to process. "How do you know?" I asked. "Mrs. Winston called my mom," Andre said. "She said the sheriff put a notice on the door." Darius disappeared. My throat tightened, not because I wanted her to suffer, but because I knew exactly how she'd fall, the same way she lived, depending on people who don't love her, using stability like it's disposable. And when it's gone, being shocked like consequences are unfair. That same week, the detective called again. "Mr. Johnson," he said, "we've made progress. We may need a statement." My hands went cold. He explained they had evidence tying the attempted applications to a device and an address, and there were other victims too, other men whose information had been used. My stomach churned. I wasn't special to her. I was just one of the people she thought she could exploit. The detective asked if I'd be willing to testify if it went further. I said yes, not because I wanted to destroy her, because I refused to be silent while she harmed people and called it living. When Janelle showed up at my job, That's when the crawl back fantasy finally died. She waited near my car, hair done, makeup perfect, like she thought beauty could erase damage. "Malik," she called as I walked up. I stopped at a distance. "Why are you here?" I asked. Her lips trembled for half a second. Then her eyes hardened. "You're really going to pretend you don't know what's happening?" she snapped. "You're so petty." Petty. I stared at her, amazed. Even now, she couldn't offer one honest sentence. She stepped closer. "Just fix it," she said. "Whatever you told them, take it back." "I didn't do this," I said quietly. "You did." She laughed, bitter. "You always want to be right," she spat. "You're not a man. A real man would handle this privately." That word, privately, made me almost smile because my life had become exactly that. Private strength, private peace, private success. "I am handling it privately," I said, "by not letting you into my life again." Her face twisted. "So you're just going to watch me struggle?" she asked. Her voice rose, drawing attention. I leaned in slightly and lowered mine. "You watched me struggle for months," I said. "You laughed about it." She froze like she hadn't expected me to say it out loud. For a second, her eyes flickered, maybe shame, maybe fear. Then it hardened into anger again. "You were never enough," she said. "You were boring. You were easy." Easy. That's what she really meant. "Buy safe." I nodded once. "Okay," I said. She stared at me, waiting for the old Malik, the one who would argue, explain, plead. I didn't give her that. I walked around her, got in my car, and drove away. In my rearview mirror, she stood there, stunned. Not because she lost me, but because she couldn't control the exit anymore. After that, I blocked every number she used. I told my supervisor not to let her near my building. I didn't celebrate. I went home and sat on my couch in silence, feeling something settle in my chest. It wasn't happiness. It was a relief, like a door finally closed fully, no draft, no rattling. I didn't need to win publicly. I didn't need people to clap. I needed quiet. I needed my nervous system to stop bracing for the next insult. That night, I made dinner and ate it slowly, like a man learning how to live without flinching. The case moved forward without me chasing updates. Every so often, the detective would call for clarification. I provided what I had and returned to my life. I kept training at the gym. I kept studying. I kept working. My supervisor offered me a promotion, inventory systems lead, more pay, better hours. I accepted and didn't post about it. I told Andre and my mom and nobody else. The success felt sacred because it didn't come from proving anything to Janelle. It came from finally investing in myself the way I'd invested in someone who didn't deserve it. Some nights, though, the pain still hit. Healing isn't linear. I'd hear a song we used to play while cooking and feel my throat tighten. I'd pass Harbor East and feel that rooftop moment flash like a cold photograph. I'd wonder how someone could share a bed with you and still laugh at your love. Those nights, I'd sit with the feeling instead of running from it. I'd remind myself, betrayal says more about the betrayer than the one betrayed. Still, it hurt. The worst part wasn't that she cheated. The worst part was that she treated my loyalty like a joke. That kind of disrespect leaves a bruise you can't show. In spring, Andre invited me to a family barbecue in Silver Spring. I almost said no. Crowd still made me uneasy. But I went. His aunties hugged me like I belonged. His uncle clapped my shoulder and asked about work. Kids ran around with sticky fingers and loud laughs. For the first time in a long time, I felt normal. I wasn't the guy who got cheated on. I was just Malik, standing by the grill, listening, smiling when something was funny, breathing without weight on my chest. That's when I realized how small my world had become with Janelle, how much I'd shrunk to fit her chaos. Later that night, Andre's aunt pulled me aside. "Baby," she said gently, "don't let that woman make you hard." Her words hit deep because I'd been afraid of that too. I didn't want to become bitter. I didn't want to carry Janelle into the next chapter. I wanted to become wiser, not colder. "I'm trying," I said. She nodded. "Good," she replied, "because the kind of man who can love steadily is rare. Don't hand that gift to somebody who laughs at it." I drove home with those words sitting in my chest like a warm stone. The official karma landed on a Tuesday, quiet, ordinary, the way real life handles big consequences. I got a call that there had been an arrest connected to the fraud ring they were investigating. The detective didn't say everything, but he didn't have to. The way his voice softened told me enough. After I hung up, I sat at my kitchen table and stared at my hands. I didn't feel joy. I felt closure. Not full closure. Nothing ever fully erases what someone did, but closure in the sense that reality had finally answered her arrogance. You can't build a life on disrespect and expect it to stand. 2 days later, Janelle sent me an email from a new address, subject line, "Please." I didn't open it right away. I let it sit for a full day. When I finally read it, I wasn't remorseful. It was a performance. She talked about stress, about bad influences, about how hard it is being a woman. She never wrote the words, "I'm sorry for hurting you." She never admitted she mocked me. She never acknowledged forcing me out. She wrote, "I didn't mean for things to go this far." Like consequences were something that happened to her, not something she created. I deleted it without replying. That's the part people don't understand when they tell you to forgive. Forgiveness isn't access. Forgiveness doesn't mean reopening your door to someone who still sees you as a tool. I could release hatred and still keep my boundaries. I could stop wishing for her harm and still refuse to save her. My comeback wasn't cruel. My comeback was clear. It was the decision to stop negotiating with someone who never respected me. It was the discipline to let silence be the answer instead of trying to be understood by someone committed to misunderstanding me. Summer came, and with it, small wins that felt like a new life. I saved enough to put a down payment on a modest townhouse outside Laurel, Maryland. Nothing flashy, just mine. I painted the walls myself on weekends, sweat and music, roller in hand. I bought a second-hand dining table and sanded it down until it looked new. I planted a small garden out back, tomatoes, basil, something alive I could care for without being punished for it. I didn't tell many people. I didn't post photos. I didn't want applause. I wanted peace so real it didn't require witnesses. One afternoon, while I was moving boxes, my mom called. "You sound different," she said. "Different how?" I asked. "Like you're not carrying something heavy anymore," she replied. I swallowed hard. "I am," I said, "but I'm learning how to carry it without it carrying me." My mom went quiet, then said, "I'm proud of you." That made my throat burn more than any insult Janelle ever threw at me, because my mother had watched me try so hard to love someone who treated love like leverage. Hearing pride felt like medicine. I ran into Kiera, the friend Janelle claimed she was staying with, at a grocery store in Baltimore. She recognized me and hesitated. I kept walking, but she called my name. "Malik," she said softly. I turned. She looked uncomfortable, like she'd been holding something for a long time. "I just want to say, you didn't deserve that," she said. I studied her face. "You knew?" I asked. Kiera's eyes dropped. "I knew," she admitted. I told her she was wrong. She didn't care. She swallowed. She said you'd forgive her. Anyway, that sentence made my chest go cold again. I nodded once. "Not anymore," I said and walked away. That night, I sat on my back steps and let the air fill my lungs. The world was quiet, crickets, distant cars, a porch light buzzing. I thought about how many people knew and stayed silent. How many people laughed. How many people benefited from my peace while I was bleeding inside. And I realized the lesson wasn't just about Janelle. It was about my boundaries. It was about how I'd been taught to endure disrespect to prove love. I didn't have to do that anymore. I could love and still leave. I could care and still cut off access. That was growth. That was the transformation. Months later, I heard through the grapevine that Darius had moved out of state to avoid more trouble. Janelle, apparently, was back at her mother's house in Richmond, Virginia for a while before returning to Maryland. People said she was going through it. People said she was humbled. I didn't believe it because humility requires accountability, and she never showed remorse at any point. Not when she cheated, not when she mocked me, not when she tried to frame herself as the victim. Even her downfall wasn't a lesson for her. It was an inconvenience. I stopped asking. I stopped caring. Indifference is a kind of freedom. The final time I saw her was unexpected. I was leaving a coffee shop in Federal Hill, and she was walking in. For a second, our eyes locked. She looked thinner, tired, but her expression still had that familiar edge, like kindness was something she refused to wear. She paused like she expected me to speak first. I didn't. I nodded politely, the way you nod at someone you once knew, and kept walking. Behind me, I heard her scoff like even my peace offended her. That's when I knew for sure there was nothing left to fix. Not because I didn't try, because she didn't want to change. She wanted to be in control. People love dramatic endings. They want the cheating partner to cry in public, to beg on their knees, to be exposed in a viral moment. That wasn't my story. My story was quieter and honestly harder. My comeback was not giving her the emotional theater she fed on. My comeback was refusing to chase closure from someone who never respected truth. My comeback was protecting my credit, my home, my name. It was building a life where my stability belonged to me, not to whoever decided to exploit it. That kind of victory doesn't trend. It just lasts. I started dating again slowly. Not to replace Janelle, not to prove anything, but because I wanted to trust that good people still exist. I took my time. I asked better questions. I watched actions more than words. I didn't ignore red flags because someone was beautiful or charming. I stopped equating intensity with love. The first time a woman I was seeing, Nia Harper from Washington, D.C., asked me how I like to handle conflict, I almost didn't know how to answer. Because I'd been conditioned to handle conflict by swallowing it. I'm learning, I told her truthfully. She nodded and said, "That's enough." That simple sentence nearly broke me. I never told Nia every detail right away. I didn't want my past to become my personality. But when I did share the outline, cheating, mocking, being forced out, she didn't ask why I stayed. She didn't laugh. She didn't act like it was entertainment. She said that had to hurt. Then she sat with me in silence until my shoulders dropped. That's what safety feels like, I realized. Not grand gestures, not promises, just respect, just emotional honesty. I didn't rush love. I let it be slow. Slow is what my nervous system needs. Meanwhile, my life kept improving in quiet ways. I paid down debt. I built savings. I kept my circle small. I took my mom on a weekend trip to Annapolis and watched her smile at the water like she deserved every calm moment life could give her. I met a younger guy at work who reminded me of myself. Steady, overlooked, trying too hard to be accepted. I told him, "Don't let anyone confuse your consistency for weakness." He asked who taught me that. I didn't say Janelle's name. I just said life. Sometimes late at night, I still thought about that rooftop bar. Not with rage, but with a strange gratitude. If I hadn't heard her say it, if I'd stayed blind, I might have married her. I might have built a life that she would have used like a ladder. That thought sobered me more than anything. Pain can be protection when it forces you to see. I didn't deserve the betrayal, but I deserved the truth it revealed. I deserved the chance to stop crawling for a love that only existed when I was on my knees. I ran into one of Janelle's friends, Shayla, months later at a gas station. She looked at me, then looked away quickly. I could see discomfort in her posture, like she remembered laughing. I didn't approach. I didn't need an apology. I didn't need her regret. I didn't need anybody to admit I was right. I only needed to keep my peace intact. That's what growth looks like. Not demanding validation from people who are comfortable misunderstanding you. I got in my car and drove home to a house that was mine, to a life that no longer depended on being chosen by someone who didn't value me. When people ask me now, "What did you do after she cheated?" they expect a story about revenge. They expect a dramatic mic drop moment. I tell them the truth. I got quiet. I got organized. I protected my identity. I rebuilt my life. I stopped begging someone who enjoyed my pain. That answer disappoints people who want entertainment. But it satisfies me because it's real. It's the kind of comeback that doesn't require an audience. It's the kind that lasts long after the person who hurt you moves on to the next victim. And that matters more than any scene. I learned that love without respect is just labor. It's you working to earn basic decency. It's you apologizing to stop arguments you didn't start. It's you shrinking yourself to fit someone else's chaos. Janelle called me trained because she thought my loyalty was programmable. She thought my kindness was a leash. She thought my fear of losing her would keep me in place. What she didn't understand is that love can end in one sentence. When a man finally sees himself clearly. Not because he stopped loving, because he started respecting himself. The most painful part of that season wasn't the cheating. It was the humiliation of realizing how little she feared losing me. That's what made her bold. That's what made her laugh. That's what made her push me out like I was disposable. People like that confuse patience for permission. They assume the steady person will always absorb the chaos. They don't expect the steady person to change their locks. Emotionally, financially, spiritually. They don't expect a man to wake up one morning and decide, I'm done negotiating my humanity. The day I decided that, the crawl back story ended. I never got a sincere apology. I never got closure in the form of her admitting the truth. I had to create closure by building a life she couldn't access. That's what shocked her. Not that I yelled. Not that I embarrassed her. Not that I cheated back. What shocked her was that I became unreachable. I stopped being available for manipulation. I stopped being the one who fixed everything. I stopped giving her the satisfaction of my emotional reaction. I let her live with the consequences of her own choices without carrying her on my back like I used to. If I could speak to the version of me who sat in that car outside my apartment, heartbroken, staring at his own reflection like he didn't recognize himself, I'd tell him this. You're not weak for loving hard. You're weak only when you keep loving people who punish you for it. Loyalty is a gift, not a guarantee. You don't owe it to someone who uses it as a joke. And the moment you stop crawling for a love that doesn't respect you, you will feel pain, but you'll also feel power. Quiet power. Real power. The kind that doesn't need anyone else's approval. Janelle's karma wasn't magical. It wasn't cinematic. It was the natural result of treating people like resources. Friends don't stay when you only show up to take. Men don't commit when they know you're disloyal. Credit doesn't survive when you're careless. Housing doesn't hold when you don't pay. Reputation doesn't remain clean when your choices start leaving paperwork behind. She didn't get punished by me. She got exposed to her own patterns. And in the end, the thing she laughed at, the idea that I'd crawl back, became the thing she couldn't escape. She realized I was the only stable bridge she'd burned. My life now is simple in the best way. I go to work, I come home, I sleep without anxiety. I cook on Sundays. I keep my house clean. I train at the gym. I talk to my mom regularly. I protect my peace like it's sacred because I know how expensive it is to rebuild. My success is private and steady. No speeches, no social media victory laps, no public look what I overcame. Just a quiet life where nobody gets to laugh at my love again. That's what healing looks like for me. Not loud, not performative, just honest and consistent. Sometimes I still think about what she said. He always comes crawling back. I think about how confident she sounded, and I think about how wrong she was. Because I didn't crawl back. I crawled out. I crawled out of a situation that was killing my dignity one day at a time. I crawled out of being treated like a joke. I crawled out of a home where I wasn't respected. And once I stood up again, I stopped crawling altogether. That's the part people don't see when they mock good men. Good men can leave. Good men can disappear. Good men can become unreachable. If you're listening to this and you're in something like what I was in, being cheated on, mocked, used, forced to prove your worth over and over, I'm not going to tell you to be petty. I'm going to tell you to be smart. Protect your finances. Protect your name. Protect your peace. Don't argue with a person committed to disrespecting you. Don't try to win their understanding. Build your exit quietly. Then leave without begging. The person who laughs at your love doesn't deserve your explanations. They deserve the silence that comes after you finally choose yourself. That's what I did next. I didn't embarrass her. I didn't chase her. I didn't crawl back. I let the consequences catch up. And while she was still telling stories about how I'd return, I was building a life where her name didn't even fit on the door. If you want more real stories where the comeback is quiet but permanent, subscribe and watch the next one on screen. Because the strongest revenge is a life they can't reach. Drop a comment. I choose me if you're done crawling for love. Watch next play button, subscribe. I choose me. The end.